But for now, CMMC is kind of the main accreditation standard that most of our clients and what the market is adhering to now. Before I go into the details and granularities of CMMC, there is the new finalized rule that has been updated. So on October 11th of this year, the finalized CMMC rule was initiated, which will take place on December 16th and for the first phase of implementation, and then quarter 1 and 2 respectively thereafter. So 2025 is a really big year, not just for CMMC, but just for defense contracts in general. So in light of defense contracts, now the Department of Defense has created the CMMC maturity program. With that being said, it kind of adheres to a specific set of requirements based off of the NIST 800 series framework, specifically 171. And Jim mentioned the word change. That's the nature of cybersecurity. So though there are certain revisions out for any sort of accreditation, something could happen. A 0-day might happen right after this call, and that would force all the updates for all the different and various frameworks. So a little bit more detail on CMMC. So a lot of this process is based off of 110 requirements, again, based off of the NIST 171 framework. It also maps to the FedRAMP and FIPS 140-2 encryption standards as well. Now, CMMC, a very popular accreditation is version 2 level 2, which specifically calls out to controlled unclassified information. Now, that type of information has been a big question for a lot of clients where what is CUI, for example. And CUI is something that is discussed during the gap analysis phase and risk assessment phase per any project or engagement, because it's based off of a contract that's given by a defense agency. So for example, if the Navy were to give you a defense contract with CUI, the Navy would be the one to dictate the parameters and the definition for that CUI type of information. Now, if the Army wanted to give a similar contract, their definition of CUI might be slightly different from the Navy. So CUI is something that needs to be well defined throughout the entire process for version 2 and revision 2. And that's something that is really essentially the whole backbone of the version 2 level 2 accreditation. Now, it's kind of set up into a different type of tiered model assessment. So based off of your organization, whether it's small, medium, or large, there's different security categorizations that can be adhered to. Now, though these slides are focusing on CMMC, part of the solutions and implementations will be beyond that specific accreditation and will encompass all of the different frameworks. Now, this different tiers that I've been mentioning. So level 2, like I mentioned, is the most popular for now. This could change. But as of right now, these are the 3 different main tiers of the CMMC accreditation process. Right-click is actually on its way to going beyond level 3 currently for our secure enclave. In the next couple of slides, I'll go into more detail of what a secure enclave looks like. This graphic is kind of a great way to really separate the different type of requirements per level. So in level 2, you see how there's 110 different security requirements. Now, any organization that's willing or wanting to go with the CMMC level 2 accreditation process, there are 110 requirements based off of 14 control domains from the NIST framework. The key here is that those 110 requirements must be adhered to. But there fortunately are ways to submit for an accreditation without having the 110 requirements. And that's where plan of action and milestone documentation would be created. to supplement that. And you have roughly around 180 days to implement those poems. And if you have any questions during this process, feel free to reach out to anybody on our team, and we can reach you offline. Now I really want to talk about Right-Click Shield, our new cybersecurity division. So as you can see in this slide, it says Fridays 11 a.m. PST weekly. So one of the things that our cybersecurity division really focuses on is having something called a think tank. This is something that I've seen with companies like MITRE, for example, which leads a lot of the R&D for our defense contracts, and actually have a strong voice and opinion to like the NIST framework, for example. So the purpose of this think tank is to come together from various backgrounds from our right-click team. So I have myself with a strong like compliance background. We have both of our CEOs. We have Isabel, our marketing lead. We have some of the best engineers I've had the pleasure of working with Christian, Kelly, Connor, our VP of operations, Avi, and the list goes on. So everybody that I mentioned just now are all from different disciplines. Now, coming together, whether it's trying to find an innovative solution for a specific client or how to view it from like a marketing standpoint, that's the purpose of our think tank. This way, it allows us to be flexible for any sort of changes in the cybersecurity market, like Jim mentioned. And this is kind of the brand that we're kind of moving forward with. So one of my favorite quotes is never innovate to compete, innovate to change the rules of the game. Later on in this presentation, my colleague Connor is developing such a beautiful application and to help you with any of your compliance needs. So these are kind of the main attendees. I can't articulate enough. The word that I want to use is special. This group of people is a really special team, not just from a technical or business standpoint, but like just them as people. I really respect everybody at this company, especially from an integrity standpoint. It's very inspirational and it comes from our leadership. So Avi is the one that initially screened me to join Right-Click, and then thank you, Beju and Jim, for giving me the opportunity to work with such an incredible team. The coin phrase, it takes a village. This is my village, and we're excited to be here. Now, how does this pertain to our clients? So that energy from not just from me, but our entire group in that think tank, we really focus on the why. So why do we do this? I love our country. So defense contracts are my bread and butter. I grew up right by Washington, D.C. Half my family's in the Navy. So for me and a lot of people, not even just within our enclave or our cybersecurity division, we really love the United States of America. So, and our job is to not just protect, like from a military standpoint, but our communities, which is you guys. So that's kind of how this is driven and our goals and our why, I guess. And then how we're going to do that. So if you look here, we have a various number of frameworks that we can adhere to. But those specific different frameworks like NIST, ISO, HIPAA, that's something that we would tailor unique to each one of you. Now, how we're going to do it, one of the things that is part of our playbook is called a kill chain. Now, it originally Lockheed Martin had the idea of the kill chain to kind of execute an offensive strategy to look into your organization and essentially nitpick every single vulnerability or potential control gap, et cetera, et cetera. We like to take pride in how meticulous we are with our work. Now, what I mean by that, to give you some context, is, for example, if you have finalized documentation and you have a logo, and there's different colors, for example, we'll go to the point where we will make sure that the color code is the right color code per your documentation. And so that's not even just from a cybersecurity standpoint, that's from a legal and policy standpoint. So our objective isn't just to make you cyber secure, but it's also to prepare you for the enterprise level. I've had the privilege of working in corporate America for essentially my entire career. And what we're going to do is take those enterprise grade solutions and implement them into your business. That way they can scale to the enterprise level. That way we have a mutually beneficial relationship. Now, to go more in detail about the kill chain, and again, the CMMC component, this can apply to all frameworks. The kill chain is to essentially protect you guys with the best possible hygiene. And that's from a documentation and technical implementation standpoint. The way we do it is based off of a sequential 23 step type of model. Now, with that model, it seems pretty robust in terms of how many things are being mapped per requirement. But this graphic right here will kind of give you some context of how the process looks like. So on the right-hand side will be the different steps and processes. And if I zoom in here, it's this yellow point is the starting point. And if I zoom back out, this is the entire process that we'll be guiding you through until your submission deadline. So these red boxes are essentially the requirements that you'd have to adhere to, and we'll guide you every single step of the way. Next is what is the CMMC enclave and how and when to use it. RightClick has created its own enclave. So essentially that enclave is something that is separate from your main organization. So if you have a commercial side business that wants to go into the federal space, you can create a secure enclave to adhere to defense contract requirements or HIPAA requirements, depending on which industry you're in. Now, path to a successful journey. So this is where we really focus on from not just a management and technical focus, but we really focus on the CIA triangle. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability for all of your information and data, each step of the way, really. With that in mind, the two factors that we're really focused on is how much it costs and how much it'll affect your operations from a day-to-day. So those are the type of solutions that we'll propose during this type of process. Now, usually it starts with a gap analysis. So if we're starting from square one, a gap analysis will essentially go through every single requirement to whatever framework you want to adhere to. So if it's the CMMC version 2 level 2, then those 110 requirements will be addressed from day one, where I would do a physical walkthrough for physical security and all the way through 110 controls from a technical standpoint. Then once that gap analysis is complete, a formalized report will be addressing all 110 requirements, and then it'll have notes about how you essentially could fix or solve them. The next portion of that is the actual risk assessment in itself, preparing you for any sort of audit or submission. The weekly cadence is something that we like to do for clients where on Mondays, a weekly scope Outlook email will be sent out. And what that means is basically in the next 5 days, if today was Monday, I would state that we would go through a certain amount of like control requirements or control domains. And it's at a very high level. That way leadership can get involved and there will be traceability throughout every step of the process. And then during that same week, on Thursdays usually, is to kind of have a weekly scope recap email to kind of address that Monday email to see if all the objectives were made or if there's any sort of critical updates that leadership may need to know, which is the purpose of the Friday meeting. During this process as well, I like to call them working sessions. During those working sessions, that's where we'll actually do the bulk of the work, whether it's a technical implementation, reviewing documentation or policies. And then throughout that process, we have a very talented guy named Connor that has been working on a very unique solution for us and our clients. So I'm going to